Hi guys, Ian here, and today we'll take a look at B Media's collaboration with Kiwiears, the Chorus Single Dynamic Driver IEM. Retail price for this is $39.99, and if you are interested to find out more, do check out the unaffiliated link down in the description below. So I've spent some time with this, and today I'll share with you guys my thoughts and opinions about this Chorus. So let's begin first with the accessories. When you unbox the Kiwiears Chorus, you are greeted with a straightforward, no-nonsense package. Inside the box, you'll find the IEMs themselves alongside a decent 2-core silver-plated copper cable. This cable terminates in a standard 0.78mm 2-pin connector, and you can choose between a standard 3.5mm headphone jack or a USB-C port with built-in DSP. You will also get 2 sets of silicone ear tips and of course the user guide and warranty card. Well, the accessories provided are perfectly functional and appropriate for this competitive sub $50 price bracket. Moving on to the design and build quality, these earphones feature a hybrid construction that feels genuinely premium for the budget price. The main body of the shell is constructed from a lightweight but durable plastic. Capping off the design is a robust, precision CNC machined metal faceplate that carries the commemorative collaboration logo, and this metal faceplate elevates the overall aesthetics and adds structural rigidity. It also incorporates a semi-open back style with a small vent allowing the dynamic driver to breathe. Now, the paint job on the faceplate has a slightly speckled acoustic spectrum-like pattern that gives it a unique visual identity. Well, overall, the build quality feels solid in the hands, making it a reliable everyday carry item. Now, when it comes to fit and comfort, the Kiwiears Chorus absolutely knocks it out of the park, thanks to that lightweight plastic inner shell and the highly ergonomic shape. Now, these IEMs sits incredibly flush within the concha of my ears, and I found that I can wear these for 4 to 6 hours continuously without experiencing any physical fatigue, pressure hotspots, or headaches. Now, the 2-pin cable is very soft, it's light and thin, meaning it drapes nicely over my ears and it does not retain any annoying memory. And furthermore, the semi-open design ensures that there is absolutely no driver flex or uncomfortable pressure buildup in my ears upon insertion. However, because that semi-open nature, the passive noise isolation is noticeably weaker than fully sealed competitors, letting you hear your surroundings a little bit more. Alright, now let's talk about the sound performance of the Chorus, but before we deep dive into the audio, let's quickly run through the specifications. Now, the Chorus is equipped with a single dynamic driver, specifically utilizing the latest generation of Kiwiears custom diamond-like carbon diaphragm. Now, they have an impedance of 32 ohms and a sensitivity of 103 dB at 1 kHz. Now, the frequency range is 20 to 20,000 Hz, and thanks to that DLC driver rigidity, total harmonic distortion is kept impressively low, rating at under 0.1% at 1 kHz. Alright, so let's start off with compatibility, and I tried this with my MacBook, my PC, DAPs and DACs, and because of its sound signature, I recommend pairing this with a more neutral or analytical solid-state source. Now, with an impedance of 32 ohms and 103 dB of sensitivity, they are incredibly easy to drive. You do not need a powerful dedicated amplifier, but because they already have a warm, lush and relaxed tuning. Now, pairing them with an overly warm DAP might make the presentation a little bit too thick. Alright, so let's get into the tone and timbre. Now, this IEM was tuned in collaboration with the reviewer B Media. He's a great guy with a good pair of ears. Now, prioritizing a relaxed, musical and fatigue-free listening experience. Now, the tonal balance leans heavily into a warm and inviting presentation. The naturalness of the instruments and vocals is excellent. Now, for lower register acoustic instruments like cellos and kick drums, they carry a very realistic and analog feel. There is no trace of that sterile, cold digital feel which you sometimes find in highly analytical sets, and the warmth permeates the entire frequency range, making the overall presentation feel highly cohesive. While it might sacrifice a tiny bit of absolute transparency, the results for the tempo of this IEM is incredibly pleasant, making acoustic tracks, pop, and hip-hop sound rich and full-bodied. Alright, so now let's move into the technical performance. First, the soundstage. Well, the width and the depth and the height are about average for this price point, creating a fairly intimate presentation. However, thanks to that semi-open back vent, the holography and 3D projection feels a bit more natural and adding a slight airiness that prevents the soundscape from feeling too claustrophobic. Now, as for sound separation, I would say it's pretty decent, but it's not class leading, of course. I mean, it's $39.99. But due to the thicker note weight, the space between individual sound is somewhat reduced compared to a brighter set of IEMs. Now, in terms of instrumental layering, the chorus provides pretty okay left to right channel distinction for casual listening, but in very busy tracks, the imaging precision takes a hit and overlapping instruments can start to blend together. Now, as for detail retrieval, I would call this a very relaxed version. The micro details in reverb tails and low volume articulations like subtle background vocals or distant cymbal strikes are smoothed over by that relaxed treble. But despite all this, performance remains remarkably consistent and distortion-free at both low and high listening volumes. As for resolution, the macro versus micro resolution balance leans heavily to macro. Now, the overall sharpness and refinement are relaxed, giving you the bigger picture of the music rather than the intricate ability to distinguish every single overlapping instrument clearly. Alright, so let's move into what you all guys are waiting for, which is the sound signature. And I'll post my graph somewhere up here on the right. And let's start off with the overall sound signature of the chorus, which I would describe as a warm, balanced or L-shaped tuning characterized by a massive sub-bass shelf, a very rich mid-range, and a very safe, relaxed treble. Alright, so let's start off with the sub-bass, and this hits an impressive 91 dB right down at the 20 Hz. And this showcases a fantastic extension, providing a powerful 10 dB shelf that mimics the physical rumble of a dedicated subwoofer. Now, it leans heavily towards a visceral rumble rather than intense texture, but the DLC driver maintains great control, so it never sounds overly loose or bloated when it comes to the sub bass. As for the mid bass, it glides gently down to around 84 dB at 150 Hz, and this tuning provides a very solid note weight, impact, and punch, and it does bleed slightly into the lower mids, but it adds to that overall analog warmth without completely ruining the clarity. Now, as for the mid-range, it dips down to its lowest point at around 300 to 400 Hz before steadily climbing back up again, and instruments and vocals have a slight recession compared to the massive low end, but maintain enough clarity to remain engaging. Now, because of the lower mid warmth, male vocals sounds really good, sounding rich and authoritative. For female vocals, they are pleasantly velvety, though they lack that final bit of aggressive forwardness at the upper end. Now, looking at the pinna gain, we see a steady natural ear gain rise, peaking precisely at around 3.5 kHz at 94 dB. Now, tonal accuracy in the upper mid-range is spot on. Because the peak is completely controlled and not pushed too early, there is zero sibilance or shoutiness. Alright, so finally we have the treble. Now, after the peak at the pinna, there is a smooth roll off into the upper treble, hovering at around 82 dB before dropping further into the upper air regions. And treble extensions, I would say, is moderate, admittedly lacking air and sparkle. However, there is zero harshness, zero peakiness, and zero listening fatigue. Now, the perceived resolution from the treble content is blunt, making it perfect for long, relaxed listening sessions. Alright, so that's the overall sound signature of the chorus. Now let's compare these to similar single dynamic driver IEMs like the Moodrop Q2 or the Truth Ear Zero Red in terms of differences in tuning and technical aspects. Now, in terms of tuning, the chorus is noticeably warmer, thicker, and more sub-bass focused compared to the True 2, which leans much brighter overall. And comparing to the Zero Red, the chorus is more relaxed and less strictly neutral. The Zero Red gives you a cleaner bass tuck, whereas the chorus fully embraces the bass bleed to create a velvety, lush atmosphere. Now, in terms of technical differences, the chorus falls slightly behind its peers. The True 2 and Zero Red both offer better instrument separation and sharper overall imaging precision. The chorus knowingly sacrifices that clinical edge in favor of pure musical enjoyment and maximum comfort. Alright, so let's conclude, and the Kiwiears XB Media Chorus is an incredibly interesting budget release. It does not try to be a giant killer in terms of resolving power or technical prowess. Instead, it knows exactly what it wants to be, which is an ultra comfortable, warm, bassy, and fatigue-free daily driver. So at $39.99 or $44.99 for the USB-C version, it provides tremendous value for the casual listener or the hip-hop head. So if you prioritize extreme wearing comfort and a rich low end over clinical analytical details, well, this is a phenomenal buy. Alright, so that's it for my overall thoughts and opinions about this Kiwiears XB Media Chorus. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and also please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. My name's Ian. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Cheers.